Hi, it's Kirby Sommers. Today is June 12th, 2025, and our focus today is Jared Leto. So, my podcast is 100% viewer supported. I have no corporate sponsors, only the people who follow my work, many of whom subscribe to either my newsletter or my Patreon, others who buy one or more of my books, and yet others who generously donate with a super thanks or a one time contribution via my website. And while the financial support keeps on the lights. And by the way, there's also those of you who are kind enough to do a super thanks. Very much appreciated. Thank you. But I'm also very grateful to those of you who take the time to like, subscribe, and share so that I can keep doing what I do. So I think that some of you may have heard that the most recent man on the carpet for inappropriate behavior is none other than Jared Leto. Now, Jared Leto is 53 years old. He's an actor, he's a musician, he has received numerous accolades over a career that spanned 3 decades. Insane that Jared Leto has been around for 3 decades, and he's won an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and he's very eccentric. He has a band, 30 Seconds to Mars, and by the way, he bought Lookout Mountain, which is a former military site. And when that happened, I thought, oh, okay, there's something really peculiar about this guy, Jared Leto, because Lookout Mountain is in Laurel Canyon in California. There is a Lookout Mountain somewhere in Tennessee, but it's not this one, which is in Laurel Canyon. It was like a secret Hollywood kind of like military intelligence operation. Because don't forget that before we had the CIA and before we had the OSS, and well, then previous to that, it was something else, and it was conducted via our military armed services, such as the Navy and the Air Force. And so we had this, and it was a place where movies were made for private consumption for the use of the government in their ongoing, never ending propaganda. Among the people that were allowed to be in there were Bob Hope and Marilyn Monroe, among others. And so I'm going to be sharing information because, well, someone posted something and it brought up allegations against Leto. So I will begin with, I think what I'll do is perhaps read to you the most recent kind of like article, but I'll begin with that. There was an allegation from Allie Teals. She's a DJ who posted last month in kind of like a since expired Instagram story that she was assaulted and traumatized by Leto when she was 17. Now, this is in the Airmail article that I'm going to try to read most of it here for you. In a 2012 Facebook status update. Then she reposted it on Instagram. She wrote, "You're not really in LA until Jared Leto tries to force himself on you backstage in a kilt and a snow hat." And so a representative for Jared Leto clearly has said, oh, well, that's false. Okay, well, it's always false, right? Now, I have been looking at some of the commentary, and people were like, why would this news be news when everyone has known how creepy he is, and what is Disney thinking? Now, those of you who follow my work are aware that Disney is not the family friendly place it really is, but it's very sinister. And again, it's connected to the intelligence community. So that, another person said in 2016 or 2017, he got accused of being inappropriate with minors and women when he was being circulated to play Hugh Hefner in a Playboy biopic by Brett Ratner. When he got canceled, when Ratner was, pretty much outed being the creep that he is. And those of you who have been following current events and everything are aware that Brett Ratner, well, gee, he seems to be very close with Meghan Markle. Well, put a pin in that because I'll be returning with another podcast with info that I've just been sitting on and I really haven't had time to share with you, but I'll be coming back to that. So, in um, Airmail magazine, an article called The Cult of Leto. And the reason they do that is because that photograph, come on, he has like a cult and he looks like a wild man who kind of is a little full of himself. So anyway, um, this article came out a few days ago, and I'm going to begin. 6 years ago this summer, Jared Leto's followers descended on Mars Island. It's always an island, isn't it? Okay, anyway, a private resort off the coast of Croatia. For 3 days, fans, many of them young women, some of them paying more than $6,499 to be there, meditated, chanted, and lounged barefoot in Kafgans alongside Leto, who, in addition to starring in American Psycho, Fight Club, House of Gucci, and Blade Runner 2049, is the front man of 30 Seconds to Mars. The band called it a spiritual retreat. The French magazine L'Officiel called it something else, the cult of Jared Leto. Photos from the retreat show Leto dressed in white robes and reflective sunglasses, leading silent processions through pine forests, his signature long hair blowing in the breeze. In one image, he stands on a cliff with arms raised, dozens of fans below him, mimicking the pose. Yes, this is the cult, reads one of the band's tweets. Mars Island. Oh dear, 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 dear. Okay, well, let's see what else the article has to say. Um, So Mars branded t-shirts and sweatshirts abounded, as did fans who had the band's logo, a triangle, reminiscent of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon album cover, tattooed onto themselves. But the theatrics, the ropes, the rituals, and the guru posturing at this and other Mars hosted events haven't fully been able to obscure decades worth of rumors about Leto behaving inappropriately with younger women in his orbit. I spoke with 9 of these women who revealed a darker side to the 53-year-old actor. And then they begin with Cheto likes him young. On September 12, 2005, the New York Post published an item on Leto, who had a few years earlier appeared opposite Jennifer Connelly in the movie Requiem for a Dream. The story opened with a blunt line: Jared Leto likes him young. And apparently he does, because all the rumors, and everybody seems to be aware of these rumors, except that, okay, well, look, if we're going to start calling them to the carpet, let's just keep doing it. I'm going to continue with the article. Though Leto, 33 years old at the time, had been spotted around New York with Ashley Olsen and Lindsay Lohan, who were both of age by this point, the New York Post alleged that he was more interested in groups of teenage models staying at the Maritime Hotel, girls from IMG, Elite. Now, isn't that interesting? Elite. Doesn't that also connect to J.E. and Jean-Luc Brunel? Elite. Okay. next, and women are staying there. And Jared has been hitting on all of them. An anonymous source told the paper he's a serial texter. He is constantly texting these other 16 and 17-year-old girls. It's really kind of creepy. And then in parentheses, they write a representative for Leto calls the New York Post item recycled tabloid fodder and demonstrably false. Okay, sure. 20 years later, the women I spoke to say Leto's alleged past behavior was not a phase, but rather part of a long standing pattern, one that was and continues to be widely known in some circles and generally quite accepted. It's been an open secret for a long time, one of the women tells me. Another woman I spoke to, a model and music producer, says she was 16 when, in 2006, Leto approached her at Urth Cafe in Los Angeles, then a popular destination for Hollywood agents and middle school girls. Now, isn't that weird? This is a quote, a popular destination for Hollywood agents and middle school girls. So they're talking about 14-year-olds going to this cafe in Los Angeles. All right, well, I'm going to continue with the article. The woman's mother was outside waiting for a table as the woman pushed through the crowd, and they're basically talking about the mother pushing through the crowd, and then what's going to happen is he grabs the girl's arm, and the way it's written doesn't sound like that. So I'm going to read it, but now you know what to expect. As the woman pushed through the crowd to go to the bathroom, Leto, seated nearby with Olsen, 19, whom he was rumored to be dating at the time, grabbed her arm. I looked down, and it was Jared Leto, but at the time, the woman was a minor teenage girl. Okay, that's where this article didn't really make it clear, and that's why I stepped in to clarify it. And then she said that we had a quick conversation, and he got my number. A few days later, he called her home in the middle of the night. I don't know if he was on drugs or what. It was the grossest, weirdest voice. But for me, it's Jared, you know? And then it inserts in parentheses a representative for Leto says he had not had a drink or used drugs in over 35 years. Okay, moving on. I just want to just show you how creepy this guy is. He's just like, but he's certainly full of himself. All right, let's just continue with this article. Okay. So anyway, in that photograph, he's with Brent Bolthouse, and you know, he's a guy who's behind a lot of the actor parties in New York, and that's back from 2007. And I'm going to continue with the article. That night, Leto was hosting a party at his house in Los Angeles' Laurel Canyon neighborhood, organized by Brent Bolthouse, a nightlife promoter based behind the then infamous neon carnival parties, lavish invitation only affairs held at the Desert International Horse Park in Thermal during Coachella. Leto invited the women. They keep calling this teenage girl the woman, which, I think that is going to throw off a lot of people. And this is Airmail magazine. However, Airmail magazine, you should know, is owned by Graydon Carter. Yes, Graydon Carter, who was the editor of Vanity Fair, who has a really interesting connection to JE that, as many of you have seen, if you have been reading my newsletters on Substack. Okay. So I'm going to go back to that sentence. Leto invited the woman, but she declined. I didn't even have a driver's license. Still, over the next 3 weeks, the calls kept coming. Always at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, she says. And the conversations turned, risque. I'm going to have to use the word risque versus Sexual. Okay. He'd ask things like, have you ever had a boyfriend? Have you ever done the deed orally? Okay, because he said it in a much more crass way. The woman says the experience left her shaken. She was in rehab at the time and discussed it with her counselor. He changed his voice, the way he talked. It scared me, she said. That was the first time I thought, oh my God, that's not just in the movies. And then in parentheses, they write the woman's mother, who says she overheard one of their phone calls, has confirmed her story. In 2008, the model Laura LaRue, also 16 at the time, had a similar encounter at Yes on Prop 2, an animal rights benefit held at a private residence in Beverly Hills. LaRue remembers Leto spotting her from across the room. He was watching her so intensely, she says, that her mother, who was also at the benefit, noticed. At one point, he came over to her. He asked how old I was. I said, I'm 16. How old are you? Leto was 16, 30. I'm sorry, Leto was 37. Sorry, Leto was 36 at the time. I don't want to make him older than he is, but really, it's already, even when you're 36 and you're talking to a 16-year-old, that's pretty creepy. He's already 20 years older than her. But I think what we're looking at and what we're seeing is the culture of Hollywood and the culture of the entertainment industry. And, it seems that it has been this way from the beginning of whatever entertainment has been handed over to us by the intel apparatus. Okay. um Her mother didn't stop it, LaRue says, because she thought that being acquainted with him would be good for her modeling career. So she traveled often to Los Angeles for work, and she and Leto began emailing. In one exchange, she asked how late he typically worked in his music studio, and he replied, late, come visit. She did, arriving at his 4,000 square foot minimalist property. What they mean by that is that he owns what used to be actually a multi-floored with a sub, let's call it a basement, and then beneath that is a cellar. So it's more than what can be seen visually. It goes down. It's a very unusual piece of property, and I think I have a podcast here on this channel. And if I find the link to it, I will add it below to the description. Okay, so then she says that she remembered him teasing him the whole time she was there. He was flirting with me. He leaned in close, then he pulled away like it was a game. Their communications contained nothing of an inappropriate situation, let's say, a representative for Leto wanted people to know. Okay. And Miss LaRue later applied to work as his personal assistant, further underscoring the absence of anything inappropriate in any of their interactions. LaRue, however, she denies ever applying to work as his personal assistant. So again, we have men who push back with their representatives and say, no, she's lying. So it's a he said, she said, but I think the pattern is pretty obvious here. Okay, I'm going to go back to the article. Another woman who had an on and off affair with Leto around the same time described similar behavior. He'd be sweet, then suddenly really demeaning. It was a switch. Flattered by the star's attention, LaRue said, she continued to visit Leto sporadically over the next few months. On one occasion, she alleges, he walked out of the room completely nude. He just walked out with it swinging like it was nothing. LaRue said she didn't know what to think. He was 17 when the incident took place. No, she was 17. I thought maybe this is just what adult men do, she said. So around another time, another woman said she was approached by his assistant at an 18 and older nightclub geared toward young people who are above 18, but the drinking age would be 21, so they're not allowed to drink. Okay, sure. According to this woman who was 20 when this took place, the assistant told her that Leto wanted her number. We ended up hooking up a little at the club, she says, and hung out a few times at his house, but he was weird. Look, I know some people are kinky, and that's fine, but his kind of kink, it just didn't feel right. Um, so I am going to put up a photograph of a very brave woman who kind of like said, okay, she's gonna say something. So, two of his accusers are Allie Teals, whose photo I just uploaded, and another one who I was talking about, Laura LaRue. And then I'm going to continue with the article. Another woman I spoke to, an actress who began a texting relationship with Leto when she was still underage, described how visits to his house could quickly turn uncomfortable. She recalls him saying things like, "Do any of the little boys you hang out with like fuck her?" Like, this is what he's asking her. And she's like underage. And so when she was 18, the woman said his overtures escalated. She describes an incident during one of the visits to his house where he suddenly pulled it out and started to do the thing in front of her, right, what Louis C.K. is alleged to have done. All right, so then he walked over, grabbed my hand, and put it on him. He leaned in and said, "I want you to spit on it." Of course, we have another disclaimer from representative from Ferlito saying all of these allegations are expressly denied. Okay, sure, okay. And then the caption for the next paragraph reads, "Cute girls only." Leto's dealings with younger women allegedly extended to larger gatherings as well. Several of the women I spoke to mentioned Leto's friendship with Bolthouse, once dubbed the overlord of the LA party scene by the Los Angeles Times, who organized several parties at Leto's home starting in the mid 2000s, according to someone who worked with Bolthouse. And so I'm just going to get that photo showing Bolthouse with Leto, two very chummy friends who seem to cover each other's tracks. Okay, so young women were allegedly recruited to attend these events, some through modeling agencies, other through direct outreach. One party invitation greeted guests with, "Hey kids." A woman I spoke to who attended parties in 2007, 2008 said that when she wanted to bring a friend to one of the parties, she was asked for photos of her plus one. They would ask who, and they'd be like, "Cute girls only." And then apparently, this guy Bolthouse said that headshots were a regular requirement for all guests, male and female. And frankly, after everyone has learned about Sean Puffy Diddy Combs and the male and female situation, I don't think it's clearly out of the realm of possibility that boys, if they were cute enough, were also clearly welcome because it goes both ways. Okay, I'm going to continue with the article. I was 18 the first time I went, and I was definitely not the youngest person there. The woman I spoke to says she estimates the ratio at the parties to be 60 very young women to 4 or 5 men. Very reminiscent of J.E. and one of his friends who had a party with them and about 27 young girls at a hotel, and the rest I'm going to leave blank. Okay. She says the focus seemed to be getting girls to skinny dip. The energy was all about getting the girls in the pool. Leto tended to keep to the shadows at these events. As one of the women who attended his parties told me, he was sober, meticulous, always in control. And then a rep for him says, "There was never any recruiting complaint or impropriety. And then the caption for the next paragraph is something darker. Last month, the Los Angeles DJ and music producer Allie Teals reposted a 2012 Facebook status she'd written to her Instagram stories. You're not really in LA until Jared Leto tries to force himself on you backstage in a kilt and a snow hat. And so, this is the woman who wrote that. She added, I was assaulted and traumatized by this creep when I was 17. And she wrote this in another Instagram story. He knew my age and he didn't care. What he did was predatory, terrifying, and unacceptable. She added a comment. Throw back to 2012. Jared Leto was a creep then, still a creep now, going on 15 plus years of being Hollywood's most persistent predator in a kilt. And then another, she writes 29 plus years of being a PDF file. When does this end? Protect our girls. And then she tagged Jared Leto. And then, of course, a representative for Jared said, nope, this is false. Okay, so Teals has 113 Instagram followers. Her post went viral. It triggered a wave of responses. She shared over 50 of the responses she received on Instagram. And then notice she only included responses by other women that she personally knows. Many of them, so the 50 friends of hers that she knows personally, echoed the accounts of the women that this journalist spoke with for this story. So women have been hesitant to come forward beyond Instagram. Many of those who spoke seemed to be still processing their encounters with him, given how young they were when it happened. He put on this show of really believing in me, one woman says. It made me feel validated, seen as an 18, 19-year-old by this successful actor. Cosmopolitan reported on the now deleted 2015 video posted by the director James Gunn accusing Leto of sleeping with underage girls. The next morning, Gunn posted, Good morning, and sorry to all of you around the world who saw my ambient fueled Periscope session last night at 3 a.m. That's literally what he said. So I'm going to continue with the article. In 2016, Leto made headlines again for reportedly sending used let's call them baggies for below the waist, small things that look like balloons that people put on that if they're male below the waist. He's sending this, and I can't even read the rest of this, but I can read that he sent dead rats to his Suicide Squad co-stars Maggie, Robbie, Will Smith, and Viola Davis. I got so many weird things, Robbie later said in an interview with E! I can't even begin to tell you. At the time, the story was dismissed as extreme method acting. So that they were saying he can get away with it because he's a method actor. Yeah, okay. Something that apparently he is known for. And then he basically said 99.9% of what people read is BS. That's what he told Entertainment Weekly. There were no used, let's call them uh, deflated balloons that people put under, specifically the male people, put under the belt area. And the very few gifts that were ever given were given with the spirit of fun and adventure and received with laughter. So that's what he says. But to some in the industry, it kind of suggested something a lot darker. Um, in 2018, the British tabloid Metro reported on a Twitter post by the actor Dylan Sprouse that read, Yo, at Jared Leto, know that you've now slid into the DMs of every female model aged 18 to 25. What would you say your success rate is? To which Gunn replied, he starts at 18 on the internet. Gunn and Sprouse did not respond to Airmail's request for comment, and a representative for Leto says he has never met either of them. Let me be clear, Teals wrote in another Instagram story. When he's done, no, what he's done, sorry, is not okay. The sheer volume of these cases and how young some of these girls were, just 14, 15, 16, breaks my heart. I remember being so physically ill to the point of throwing up when I passed billboards for his films, one woman said, and I was just wondering how everyone in LA knows. So, anyway, that is the end of the article on Jared Leto, and let's see what happens. If those of you who have not watched my previous live of 2 days ago with Jamie Crawford, where we discussed Jack Nicholson's connection to JE and several people in his circle, all of whom also have remained unscathed, untalked about, unexposed. Well, I'm going to leave a link to that below. And with that said, take a moment to like, take a moment to subscribe, and I really look forward to hearing your comments on outing Jared Leto. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.